Hi, this is the Business Guy. When we set up an asset protection plan for a client, we'll generally separate it into three buckets. There's the cash, there's the real estate, and there's the personal property. For cash, we generally use a Cook Islands Trust, and the reason why we use that tool is because U.S. courts don't have jurisdiction over our foreign law firm that serves as a trustee. So U.S. courts say, give me the money, and our Offshore Trustee, which is our law firm there, says, you don't have jurisdiction down here, and there's not much the U.S. courts can do to force our trustee company law firm to return the money to the U.S. I've had a relationship with our personnel on the Cook Islands for about 28 years, a very strong, trusting relationship. We've protected billions of dollars of assets. And what we'll typically do initially is we'll set up a limited liability company. We typically set up the LLC in the Caribbean island of Nevis. Why that jurisdiction? Because it has the strongest asset protection when it comes to limited liability companies. We put that LLC inside of the Cook Islands Trust. And that's what holds the bank account, is the LLC that's inside of the trust. So why do we do that, you may ask? Well, it's because our client can be the initial manager of that LLC that's owned by the trust and the signature on the bank accounts. And then when the bad thing happens, an event that may force the client to return the money, what we'll do is we'll have the trustee law firm step in and become the manager of the LLC, signatorying the accounts, so the U.S. courts cannot force them to turn over the money. And people ask, well, what if they run off with the money? Well, they're very, very highly regulated. There's multiple attorneys that must sign before money is moved. And this isn't just some guy in a garage. This is a professional trust company that's been around for decades that we've worked with for about 28 years. So the Cook Islands Trust with the Nevis LLC inside is the strongest asset protection tool when it comes to liquid assets. Okay, now let's talk about real estate. What we do with real estate is we put each piece of property into a separate land trust for privacy of ownership. So you look your name up in the public records and it looks like you own nothing. For the rental property, we make an LLC in the state where the property is located a beneficiary of each of the land trusts. So you have each property into a separate land trust, and we make an LLC the beneficiary of each land trust. For one's personal residence, that falls into a different tax category, so we need to leave that in a land trust and not make an LLC the beneficiary of the land trust that holds your personal residence, because that could kill your tax benefits. So we just leave your personal residence in a land trust. And then what we'll do is we'll record equity stripping liens. That's equity lines of credit against each individual property, and we typically make that initially payable to the LLC that's inside your Cook Islands Trust. And if that lien gets challenged in the future, what we do is we have a third-party lender who can purchase those liens and then put the proceeds from those liens into your offshore asset protection trust. And that money goes into a you can't touch it account, so you can't run off and spend the money. I mean, that would be too risky to a lender to have you run off with money and have a bunch of properties in a foreign land they have to go seize and sell in order to recoup their losses. But what it does do is it shows a judge that you have set up these mortgages for the purpose of raising capital, and you've received the bona fide proceeds, and you have a genuine third-party lender who now holds the mortgages on these properties. So we call that strategy equity stripping. So each property into a separate land trust, and LLC is the beneficiary of each land trust except for your personal residence, and equity stripping liens against all the properties. That way, when somebody sues you personally, the LLCs can help protect you from losing the property. When there's a lawsuit on the property, the equity stripping protects the equity, so there's nothing left to take. Sometimes people ask, well, why don't I put the real estate in the Cook Islands Trust? The reason is because a judge can say, well, I don't care if you have this fancy trust, the real estate is in my jurisdiction, so I'm going to take it anyway. So that's why we need to employ different strategies when the asset is domestic. With the Offshore Trust, we have the assets in a very strong, secure international institution that U.S. courts don't have jurisdiction over. So we talked about cash, we talked about real estate, let's talk about personal property. Let's say you own stock in a corporation, maybe that you use to operate your business, maybe you have a bunch of equipment, you have trucks, bulldozers, or whatever it is, personal property, things that don't have titles, and things that may have titles like your car. What we do is we record a UCC1 lien against the property. A UCC1 lien is similar to a mortgage that's used against things like boats, for example. So a UCC1 lien is similar to a mortgage for personal property. So we can record a UCC1 lien against art, jewelry, cars, boats, airplanes. We register that with the FAA. So you can have liens against personal property as well as real estate. Then if needed, if that lien is challenged, again, we have a third-party lender who can purchase that lien and put the proceeds into your offshore asset protection trust. So that's what we do to protect those different types of assets, because they all fall into different categories. We have asset protection for your cash, and we use a Cook Islands Trust with a Nevis limited liability company to protect your cash assets. That's worked 100% of the time. Every one of our clients for which we've employed this strategy has protected their cash assets. And we've set up more Cook Islands Trusts than anybody in the world, by far, by the way. The Cook Islands Trust simply works. And if you look at the Global Corruption Perceptions Index, that means the most trusted countries, the countries where there's the least chicanery, the least funny business going on with people's money, New Zealand has been tied for number 1 or 2 the entire time this list has been available. Cook Islands is part of New Zealand. In some of these banana republics, if you bribe a government official, you get what you want. In the Cook Islands, you get thrown in jail. They're very, very serious, very, very stringently regulated. And we've never seen anything but pure, absolute honesty and integrity. Real estate, land trust, liens, and LLCs, and for personal property, the UCC1. And some people have this weird misconception about offshore banks. Google it yourself, 50 safest banks in the world. Guess how many of the top 50 are in the U.S.? They think the U.S. has the only safe banks in the world? Are you kidding me? If you Google 50 safest banks in the world, you'll see at least currently only 4 are in the U.S., and they're all way down to the bottom half of the list. And more than that, all 4 of them are tiny farming banks. There's no major U.S. banks on the safest banking list. So don't be deceived into thinking that the U.S. is the only one with the safe banks. There are much safer banks than U.S. banks all around the world. The U.S. is the most litigious society in the entire planet. And if you have a U.S. court empty your U.S. bank account, how safe is that? For more free info, visit assetprotectionplanners.com. Please like, subscribe, share this video. We'll see you next time. This is The Business Guy.